right? So, yes. So this is related to our visual sense. Like when Nisha picked up the mug and she showed us, our eye is actually seeing it. When we had different students telling me about different answers on that, it totally was dependent on what they saw. Agree, everyone? How their eye was perceiving. Some spoke about the size, some spoke about the color, some spoke about something else. This is how the eye is also actually taking it up. Agree? Now, some of you told about weight. Definitely, yes. It's a sturdy feel that you actually get, and it is eco-friendly. You can always work on that. And it is suitable both for your hot and the cold beverages. This is one simple example that I wanted to share with all of you. Likewise, can everybody show me the material? Whatever you had it. Try to pick a material and show it to me whenever you're ready. Okay, let me take a look. Wonderful. I want to. Yes. Now you should be able to get all your differences. Now see, suppose Prasanna has taken a pen and Shweta has taken a marker, Anita has taken a teddy. You can actually link differences. Anita's is related to texture, how soft it is, how cozy it is. Prasanna's could be the pen. What is the color of it? Purni's is related to water bottle. Is it full? Is it empty? So you will be able to teach multiple conceptions through the object itself. So whenever you have the show and tells in your classes, you can ask the children to bring one object from your class during your sensorial lesson, and you could start to isolate the concepts. Isolate. Nisha's I will teach to hold, to pour hot and cold drink. Anita's probably I would use to teach children about the soft and the roughness, right? So Prasanna's I can talk about the different kinds of color pens, okay? Any kind of a conception that I would be able to teach. So in particular to my visual sense in our classes, there are specific materials in Montessori. Please note down, whenever you are introducing visual sense exercises, this is theory, guys. So I would not go detail into materials. I will only be pointing the names of the materials. Okay, what are the materials I have to use? Cylinder blocks for thickness. Pink tower for sizes. Is it big cube or is it small cube? Brown stairs for thickness. This is thick, this is thin. Red rods for length. This is long, this is short. Knobless cylinders again for thickness and for heights. Okay, color tablets for colors. And I would also have my solids. I can have geometric cabinets. I can have my other binomial cubes and trinomial cubes. These are some of the visual sense materials. Coming to my chromic sense. This is the second sense that I would elaborate from my visual sense. Why? Because we see many colors. So Montessori isolates the chromatic sense with the color tablet materials. This material is called color tablet. You have color tablet 1, color tablet 2, color tablet 3. What would you teach in color tablet 1? Only primary colors. Only primary colors. What are our primary colors? Red, blue, yellow. Then we teach our secondary colors. What are secondary colors? When you mix red and yellow, what you get? When you mix red and blue, what you get? When you mix your yellow and blue, what color you get? Those are secondary colors. Then you also add box 3 to go with gradations. What are your gradations? If I take red color, do I have grading in the color? Dark red, red to the lightest red. I would grade them. Light pink, dark pink, darkest pink, lightest pink, right? I do grade them. So we work on gradations. So whenever you are introducing chromatic sense to children, what we generally do is we ask the children to go on a nature walk. We tell them, children, look at the tree and see how many green leaves can you find on the ground. Children starts to collect all the leaves. They come back to the class. Is there a variation in the color? Is there a variation in the textures? We can start seeing. So in chromic sense, it's only the color differences that we will be able to see. Okay. Now coming down to the next one, that's my stereognostic or the tactile muscular sense. Please note down. Stereognostics or the tactile muscular sense. Now what we do here is like, okay, Dr. Montessori, what she believed was like, our hand, even though that we don't see, it has some kind of a direct link to our brain. It's called the muscular memory. Now just close your eyes. If you have an object right next to you, when you hold it, you would still know it's a pen or a pencil or it's a ruler. That's your muscular memory, right? So this kind of feel and texture is called as your tactile muscular sense. Without you seeing it, you should be able to feel that, what it is. When you felt it, you experienced it, you understood what that object is. So when we have a bag, and if I take some objects and I put those objects into the bag and I blindfold the child, now I ask the child to feel that material or the object by putting their hand inside the bag. I call it with a special name. I call it as a mystery bag. I don't know what's inside the bag, right? So we always call this material as mystery bag. Just by the name, the teachers will be like, ma'am, I don't have mystery bag material in my class. What do I do? But my lesson plan says I have to do an exercise on this. Mystery bag, it's a bag. You put something and it's a mystery. You don't know. Children also don't know what is put into it. Children are just encouraged to touch those objects, feel it, experience it, identify, tell it. Then they open the eyes and they match whether whatever they have felt is the same or not. So this is your stereognostic or the tactile muscular. Please note down the next one is pure tactile sense. So what is it? Whatever is that sense of touch that is being interpreted through your skin by the perception of all the receptors of your skin, that's your tactile sense. Correct? Now, what do I do before this? I have to sensitize my hands, or I can sensitize my fingertips by rubbing onto the floor or onto a different material or a carpet, or I can dip it into my tepid water. Then my fingertips are very sensitive. Now, if I'm touching anything, I would be able to find out the difference, whether it is rough, whether it is smooth, whether it is extra smooth, or is it super fine. You'll be able to figure it out with this. Say, for example, in case if I give suji, rava, you will not take with the entire palm and see whether it is fine, right? You will only be using your tip of the fingers to feel what is the texture. Rangoli powder, you can give it to children to feel that fineness. So is it an extra fine or is it super fine? What is it? The child will have to feel it. And they would feel only at the tip of their fingers. So this is more sensitive to children to actually learn. So in Montessori, we use this material called touch boards. Please note down, we use a material called touch boards to experience whether it is rough or smooth. Touch boards are used to introduce rough and smooth for our children. And we use a metal bottle called thermic bottles. When you want to introduce the temperature sense, the thermic sense to our children. How does this material look like, guys? It is a metal bottle. Okay. Sometimes what you can do if you don't have this, you can take some stones or pebbles. You can heat up water with different temperatures. Dip those stones. When you take it out, you can ask the children to experience the heatness. Don't give it too hot. Maybe a warm one. The child can actually feel the warmness of that particular stone. You can use that. If they don't want to hold it, they can take that stone and they can put it on the cheek. So they would be able to experience the thermic sense. But make sure you're there because this can be a little dangerous, hot water whenever you're actually working with that. Okay, so this is going to help us to work on temperatures. Now, how do we do this exercise is given very much in detail in your practical lessons. Now, since we were talking about temperatures, we should also talk about what about the weight that you're holding in your hand. Correct? Is it light? Is it heavy? So I have to use in my class something called as Baric tablets. Baric, B-A-R-I-C. Baric tablet is the Montessori material used to introduce weights in our classes. Okay, this comes just like this. So if you see, the material comes with a holder wherein I can put the 3 kinds of tablets. Some are heavy, some are light, some are in between. I do have a weighing scale there. I do have a blindfold there because I don't want the child to judge whether it is heavy or light just by the color. Can you see there are color differences? The heavier ones are more darker. The light one is less dark. I don't want the children to actually experience this. Can you see the differences? The heavier one is more dark. The light one is very light. If I don't give them the blindfold, just by looking at this, the child will say, ma'am, this is heavy, this is light. They don't experience it. How do I give it for a child to experience? I have to ask them to hold, or I blindfold them. I give a tablet and the child will have to hold it on the tip of their fingers. When you hold it on the tip of your fingers, you will be able to differentiate, not on the palm. It has to be here. You put it on the tip. This is a note that you have to keep. I have seen many teachers putting it on the palm. You can't differentiate it because those weights are quite minimal. And this is where you lose mark. Where do you put it? On the tip of your fingers. Okay? And when the child is able to, let them go very slow. Let them feel, okay, multiple number of times. And the child will have to feel, is this tablet heavy or is this tablet heavy? If they're unable to discriminate, that is when you bring the balance or the scale. Okay, what is the scale? The weighing scale. And the child can put the object. If the heavier one goes down, you can say this is heavy and this is light. Okay, so that's how you would work. The next sense is auditory sense. We know we hear a lot of sounds through our sense organ ears, and our auditory sense is interpreting the world through our ears. So what you need to do, you need to introduce sounds. If the child will have to listen to the sounds that you're making, what you should introduce them to? Silence. But before introducing silence, you should introduce noise. You can ask children, clap your hands and then they become quiet. And then is what you take your sound cylinders and you actually shake it. And you can say, children, can you hear the sound? Is it loud or is it soft? If you don't have the sound cylinders, in your kitchen, you definitely have some plastic bottles wherein you will fill your spices and all, right? You can take that and you can shake it. So these are your like a shakers. And when you shake it, the child will be able to hear some of the sound. So this material is called the sound boxes, wherein you will have 2 identical sounds, one from the red, one from the blue. What is the child supposed to do? Once they are blindfolded, the child will have to match what are the sounds that are matching. Okay? The second activity, what you can do is you can blindfold and you can give them a game. The teacher or a student can call out the name. The child will have to identify who it is. I will ask them to talk and the child will have to identify, oh, ma'am, this is Amina. Oh, ma'am, this is Prasanna. This is Niveta. So the child will have to identify their voice. Second exercise, what you can give is you can call out from different zones of the room. And the child can say, ma'am is standing almost at the end, maybe near the door, maybe near the washroom. The children will definitely be able to give you from which direction the sound is coming. So when you go on a nature walk, these are some of the nice exercises that you can actually ask your children to be engaged with. Like, where is the sound coming from? Or they can be relaxed and they have to figure out how many sounds that they heard in their neighborhood. They can write it down. As a child is writing, you can also teach vocabulary. I heard the bus sound, I heard somebody honking, I heard somebody talking, I heard the sound of a bell, many things. The teacher keeps noting it down. Bell, drum, somebody talking, somebody horning, the sound of a bus, sound of an airplane, the birds chirping, anything. The teacher keeps on writing and you can start talking about the vocabulary. You can teach them about the spellings. So many things you can actually involve in introducing the lessons to the children. So this is all about our auditory sense. Now, olfactory is related to smell and sense organ is nose. Correct? So when you're sniffing something, the child will be able to smell properly. So you can take them to a washroom. If the washroom is clean, the child would enter. If the washroom is not cleaned, maybe the child will not like to enter the washroom, right? So this is one example you can give. The other one is, since you are all working with young children, toddlers, diaper, you can also ask the children not to sniff it, but they can smell. They can smell. If somebody pees or poops, they can smell. Just with the smell, we understand about that. For the children to understand, it becomes easier. Now, eventually, you give more abstract activities for the children. You can actually bring a lot of flowers or fruits to your classes and you can ask them to smell it. But when it is flowers, you have to be extremely cautious because there is pollen and children might be allergic to pollen when they are sniffing. So be very cautious. Don't bring flowers to your class to do these exercises, but rather you can bring fruits and vegetables to use these exercises. Or you can also use scents. So you can spray some scent on the cotton, put it into your smelling jars and ask the children to sniff. Or you can bring coffee beans and you can ask the children to sniff, right? So it becomes helpful for all of them to actually work. So this is one. If you don't have that, you can use any of these plastic containers or the glass jars and you can put some spices into it, some leaves into it, and you can ask the children to smell it. Now, this is DIY. Not every school, not every teacher will have a Montessori material, right? But that does not stop us to perform this exercise. So you want to introduce more abstract activities to the children. So you want them to match the picture to the smell of it. The children should be able to do that matching to the object to the picture. Now, those pictures are classified cards. So you would be using them to perform an exercise on smelling activities. How different it is, right? So this can be there. Eventually, when they're opening the bottles, when they're closing the bottles, you're also teaching them how to open, how to close, how to sniff, how to carry, how to position. All those are some of the simple EPL exercises that you would be integrating with all of it. So that is our olfactory. And then we have gustatory. So which sense organ helps us to taste? It's our tongue. And what do we taste? How do we differentiate between the different tastes? The child should be able to differentiate. You give them a chocolate, they say, yeah, it's nice. It's sweet.
Sweet, salty, bitter, sour.
Sweet, salty, bitter, sour. You can give them the practical exercises. Lemon, syrup. They say, ma'am, it's so sour. Bitter gourd, ma'am, it's so bitter. You can give them a neem leaf. You can give them a jaggery piece or a chocolate, right? So they might say it is very sweet. You can give them some kind of salty chips and they can say, oh, this is too salty. Or you can give them the salt itself to taste it a little and they would get that opportunity to work on refining their senses of taste. So each teacher can do it in a different way. But you have this material, this is called the tasting bottle. What do we do here is like we mix the syrup, the sugar syrup for sweet. We put a little bit of the lemon for the sour and any kind of a juice for bitter and salt water for salt. What the teacher does is like she takes one drop of it and she gives it for the child. The child will have to taste it and then they would be able to work. But some of them, they don't want to put into these bowls. They can use those bowls and the child can actually taste from that itself. So this is going to give them an opportunity to learn what kind of a taste it was. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it sweet? Is it salty? I don't say good, bad, sweet, salty, spice, bitter, and so. Okay. So how teachers can help the children to work all of that is through your Montessori shelves. Order everything in an orderly way. So in your practicals, each of these materials, just like how in your theory, visual sense, chromic sense, tactile sense, baric, thermic, then stereognostic, olfactory, auditory, all your senses, you will start arranging them. So you group all the visual sense in one, all the auditory sense in one, right? So all the tactile muscular in one. Likewise, you will arrange your shelves and keep it ready for your children. These are all your sensory shelves. Okay, it is a teacher's responsibility to keep all the shelves, how beautifully, how coordinated, orderly way that you would be keeping. This is just an example that I have picked up from the internet. So you can arrange these materials in sequence and in order. So when you have everything orderly kept in your classes, that's what Dr. Montessori also says, that the child's intelligence can be built in the first 6 years, because the brain is just growing and it is considered to be as the sensitive period, and we are learning through multiple senses, and it's the formative period. It's an absorbent mind. So whatever you teach, whatever you introduce to the child will be able to absorb. That's the reason we say the first 6 years are very, very crucial, especially 2 to 6 years, because they learn how to communicate, they learn how to be in this particular environment, and more they get the opportunities to work with materials, objects, which is around them. So that's the reason they are called to be sensitive. So if you're working with young children, you got to be very, very cautious when you're working on this class or this age group. Okay. So she is Dr. Montessori and this is her principal. Okay. Now, how her classrooms were? A classroom was completely filled with materials. No matter it was language material, math materials, EPL, geography, whatever it is, she said every material needs to be given to the child. When you give every material, it's not about you giving, it's about the child having the right to pick any material from the classroom. Since they have the right to pick anything, they are exploring that material. When they start to explore that material, they are experiencing through their senses. And she was the first person to realize sensorial education was more important than the intellectual development. And this is her strong belief. Even in your theory first chapter, Dr. Montessori's strong lines was educating the senses than the intellect. So the sense training was very important and she was the first person. And how did she realize sensorial education was so important? Only when she was working with these two people. If you remember your chapter 1, we spoke about Jean Ettard, we spoke about Edward Seguin. These were the two Frenchmen who completely influenced Dr. Montessori. She was a doctor then, but she was assisted. She was appointed as a surgical assistant in Santo Spirito. Thereby, she was also given a role to work in a mentally challenged with mentally challenged children. Now, this group was headed by Jean Ettard and Edward Seguin. When Dr. Montessori was working in their organization, she started observing how Jean Ettard and how Edward Seguin was looking after these children, how they were developing lessons, how they were introducing. Since she was working as an assistant over there, she also started getting into those lessons. So she started building her own materials. She made these mentally challenged children take up examination. Everybody scores really well and they all pass out state examinations. So that's a different story which talks about Dr. Montessori's miracle. But keeping this influence into mind, Dr. Montessori, what did she do? She introduced something called as didactic materials. What are didactic materials? Any materials which will have a scientific purpose of learning, which can be taken and kept back by a child independently. And it is resourceful. It's not a playful toy. It is something which has got a meaning of it. So that's didactic material. So she made those materials in wood. To support this material, she made a curriculum from Seguin. Now, that curriculum had a scientific method of teaching. And she consolidated all of that. That's how Dr. Montessori's method came into existence. This was for our today's session. Okay, so we would continue further on the same Thursday, and we will be able to see this particular lesson and further. Okay, I hope this was the theory, and you could go through your books. I think page by page is given in the same slides. You can mark all the important points and make a good read through. It's pretty simple chapter, a scoring chapter for all of us. Many of them have scored about 97, 98 in this particular chapter. These are some of the chapters that you can score really very well. All right. Okay. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you very much. And I would see you very soon on this Thursday. Have a great evening, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye. Amina?
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye,
dear.
ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye,
Thank you,
Lakshmi.
ma'am.
See you,
Thank you,
everyone.
ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Take care, guys. Thank you.